Sebastian O'Connell stepped off the sleek Silverjet, his shoes hitting the tarmac of the tiny upstate New York airport with a sound that didn't belong in a place like this, polished, sharp, out of place. He looked around with mild irritation, adjusting the cuffs of his navy cashmere coat. "This can't be right," he muttered to himself, glancing at the modest hangar and the single, dusty runway. His assistant had sworn this was the closest landing strip to the estate he was buying in the Catskills, but it looked more like a gas station with wings. Inside, the place was nearly empty, save for a small info desk near the entrance and rows of outdated chairs. A Christmas wreath hung crookedly on the wall, and the heater clicked loudly as it struggled to warm the space. Then he saw her. She was behind the desk, leaning on her elbow, scrolling through a weathered binder. Her dark brown hair was twisted into a messy bun, and she wore a faded airport logo hoodie that didn't hide the curve of her shoulders. She had this focused, no-nonsense energy about her, like she had better things to do than deal with lost billionaires. He approached, dragging his black leather duffel behind him. She looked up, her eyes hazel with a flicker of surprise. "Can I help you?" "I sure hope so," he said, setting the duffel down. "I was supposed to land at Sullivan County Regional. This doesn't look like it." She gave a one-shouldered shrug. "You did. We just don't call it that. Most folks call it the Strip." He blinked. "This is it." "Yup," she said, standing upright and stretching her back. "You lost or just disappointed?" A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. "I'm Sebastian O'Connell." She didn't react. No recognition. No flinch. No, "Oh my God, are you the Sebastian O'Connell from O'Connell Ventures?" "Nothing." "Shiloh," she replied, holding out her hand across the scratch counter. "Shiloh Larson." Her fingers were warm, firm. She didn't smile. "I was told a driver would be waiting," Sebastian said, glancing outside where only a single, snow-dusted pickup sat in the lot. Shiloh followed his gaze. "That'd be me." He stared. "You're joking." "I wish I was. Our driver called out this morning." "I'm the backup." "You work the desk and drive?" "Welcome to small-town airports," she said, grabbing a clipboard and tossing him a set of keys. "You want to ride up front or sit in the back pretending I'm your chauffeur?" He chuckled again. "I'll sit up front." The ride to the estate was quiet at first. The roads wound through hills blanketed in snow, the trees bare and skeletal. Her truck smelled faintly of cinnamon and coffee. She tapped the steering wheel softly to a country song on low volume. "You from around here?" he asked finally. "Born and raised," she said. "Left for college. Came back. Never really left again." "Why?" Shiloh glanced at him. "My dad died. My mom needed help. Someone had to come home." He nodded slowly. "I get that." She didn't ask him why he was here. Didn't ask what he did. Didn't ask about the briefcase he clutched, or why a man wearing a coat that probably cost more than her monthly rent was randomly flying into her town. By the time she pulled up to the stone gates of a sprawling estate, he'd just purchased sight unseen a 5-bedroom mountain house overlooking a frozen lake. He realized something strange. He didn't want to get out. She parked beside the house and turned off the engine. "You'll be fine from here?" He hesitated. "You want to come in for coffee?" he asked. "I mean, you drove me all this way." Shiloh gave him a look. "I've got work. Right?" He unbuckled, then paused. "Maybe I'll see you again?" "Airport's not going anywhere," she said lightly, then added, "Neither am I." And just like that, she was gone. The next morning, Sebastian showed up at the airport again. Shiloh was flipping through maintenance logs when she heard the jingle of the door. She looked up and raised an eyebrow. "Lost again?" "No," he said, setting down a branded coffee carrier from the only cafe in town. "But I figured if anyone deserved caffeine, it's the woman pulling triple duty around here." She eyed the cup. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just coffee." He leaned against the counter. "You don't ask a lot of questions, do you?" "Should I?" "Most people do. Usually within 5 minutes of meeting me." She took the cup, sipped, and shrugged. "I don't really care if you're rich or famous." He blinked. "I didn't say I was." "But you are, right?" she asked, deadpan. He laughed. "You're something else." Shiloh tilted her head. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Definitely a compliment." Sebastian found reasons to keep coming back. Flight schedules, weather updates, accidentally leaving his gloves behind. Every time she was there. And every time she was just herself. No acting impressed. No fake smiles. No pretending to be someone she wasn't. After a week, he asked her out. Dinner, he said. Real dinner. Somewhere with tablecloths. I'll drive. You sure? She teased. You don't know these roads. I'll risk it. She hesitated. I don't really do fancy. I do, he said simply. Let me. He took her to a private lodge an hour away that had a chef who used to cook for presidents. They sat by a roaring fire, snow falling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. He ordered wine that cost more than her monthly grocery bill. He asked about her life, her dreams, her regrets, and then he told her the truth. I'm a billionaire, he said, watching her face carefully. She blinked. Okay. I figured. You've got that polished look, like you wear suits to bed. He laughed loudly. And that doesn't bother you? She leaned in. I care more about how you treat the waitress than what's in your bank account. He stared at her, completely floored. You're serious. Dead serious. That night, he walked her to her door, her breath fogging the air. She looked up at him, cheeks red from the cold. Would it be weird if I kissed you? He asked quietly. Yes, she whispered. But do it anyway. And he did. Right there on her snowy porch with the stars watching. He hadn't planned on staying in that town more than a weekend. But now? He didn't want to leave. The wind howled through the trees as Sebastian stood in the middle of the massive stone-floored kitchen, staring at the blinking light on the oven. He'd been trying to make coffee for 20 minutes and had somehow only succeeded in boiling water and setting off a soft chirp from the smoke detector. His housekeeper wouldn't arrive until the following week, and the silence of the estate was beginning to wear on him. He pulled out his phone, checking the signal. 1 bar. Maybe 2 if he stood near the window and leaned just right. He gave up and grabbed his coat. The drive into town was quiet, the roads still dusted with the remains of last night's snowfall. He passed a gas station, a diner with a crooked sign, and a small hardware store before pulling into the lot beside the airport. She wasn't at the front desk when he walked in. The place felt even smaller without her in it. Looking for someone? Asked a man in coveralls, pushing a mop across the floor. Shiloh, Sebastian replied, glancing toward the back door. She's on the tarmac, the man said, nodding toward the open hangar. Helping with a delivery. Sebastian found her outside, clipboard in hand, directing a man unloading crates from a small cargo plane. She was wearing a thick flannel jacket, her hair tucked under a knit cap. Her breath fogged as she spoke, issuing instructions with the kind of clarity that came from confidence, not arrogance. You don't quit, do you? He asked, approaching. She turned, surprised. What are you doing here? I got tired of talking to my oven, he said. Figured your company would be more responsive. She snorted. Did you come all this way just to flirt? No, he said, stepping closer. I came because I can't stop thinking about the way you look when you're focused. Her eyes narrowed slightly. That's a strange compliment. It's the truth. She hesitated before handing the clipboard off to the other man. I have an hour. Perfect, he said. Let me kidnap you. They didn't go far. Just down the road to a small cafe tucked between a bait shop and a flower store. Inside, the walls were covered in old photos of fishing trips and 4th of July parades. A chalkboard listed the day's specials, all under $10. Everyone here knows you, he said as they sat at a corner booth. Yeah, well, when you grow up with the same dozen families, anonymity isn't really an option. You ever think about leaving again? She stirred her tea slowly. Sometimes. But leaving means starting over. And starting over's expensive. He leaned back. I could help you. Her gaze lifted, sharp and unreadable. I'm not looking for a rescue. I didn't say you were. You're used to fixing things with money. That doesn't work on me. I'm learning that. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The waitress brought warm muffins, and Shiloh tore hers apart with practiced ease. Why are you really here, Sebastian? She asked finally. I bought the property to get away from Manhattan. I told myself it was temporary, just a place to breathe. But now, I'm starting to notice things, like how quiet feels different here, and how I never check my watch when I'm with you. She looked down at her hands. You're not built for this place. Maybe I'm not, he admitted. But I'm trying. He reached into his coat and slid a small box across the table. She opened it slowly, revealing a silver compass with a delicate engraving on the back. What's this? A reminder, he said, that not all directions point away from where you started. That's a bit poetic for a finance guy. I have layers. She closed the box carefully. You keep showing up, Sebastian. But I need to know something. Ask. If this turns into something, are you going to disappear the moment your real life calls? He met her gaze without hesitation. I don't think I remember what my real life is anymore. She exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a fraction. Okay. You can keep showing up. They left the cafe together, walking slowly toward her truck. The snow had started again, soft and steady. Neither of them said anything until they reached the parking lot. Come to the winter festival with me, she said suddenly. What's that? Local thing. Ice sculptures, bonfire, cider. It's small, but it matters here. He smiled. I'll be there. That night, he stood at the edge of the second-story balcony of his estate, looking out over the frozen lake. The wind had calmed, and the sky was clear, stars scattered like diamonds above the treetops. He thought about her hands gripping the steering wheel, her voice giving orders on the tarmac, the way she looked at him like he was a man, not a bank account. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was on the outside of his own life. He felt placed, not lost, not waiting, just still. And that stillness had her name written all over it. The town square was strung with gold lights, their warm glow dancing across the snow-covered sidewalks, as if the entire place had been dipped in magic. Music drifted from hidden speakers' soft acoustic guitar, mellow and nostalgic. The winter festival was in full swing. Sebastian adjusted the collar of his tailored wool coat, avoiding a patch of slush as he stepped out of his black SUV. People were already gathering around fire pits and booths selling spiced cider and handmade ornaments. Children chased each other past a snow sculpture of a moose. He scanned the crowd, feeling oddly nervous. Shiloh emerged from behind a booth where she'd been helping string garlands. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and she wore a thick navy parka, the hood lined with fur. Her expression changed the moment she spotted him, her lips curved up. But it wasn't just about seeing him. It was the kind of smile you gave someone who'd become part of your world without asking for permission. I wasn't sure you'd actually come, she said as she approached. I said I would. People say a lot of things, and I meant it. She studied him for a moment. You're overdressed. I wasn't sure if this was a cider and snow kind of thing or a champagne and fireworks kind of thing. It's a marshmallow and frozen noses kind of thing, she said, handing him a paper cup from a nearby vendor. Try this. It's made by the high school chemistry teacher. Don't ask what's in it. He took a sip and coughed. That's alarming. Yeah, but it warms you up faster than anything else. They walked through the square, Shiloh greeting almost everyone by name. She introduced Sebastian only once, when her former English teacher waved them over. This is Sebastian, she said simply. He's new. The older woman nodded, sizing him up with the kind of look that said she'd seen 1,000 faces and forgotten none. Well, if he's with you, he must be worth keeping around. After they moved on, Sebastian glanced sideways. You didn't tell her who I was. I told her exactly who you are. He paused. You know, I don't think I've ever been anonymous before. You're not anonymous, she said. You're just not the headline. They stopped near a bonfire where a group of kids roasted marshmallows. A guitar player strummed in the background, singing a slow version of a song Sebastian remembered from years ago, something about roads and regrets. The flames flickered across Shiloh's face, casting shadows beneath her lashes. "I was thinking about something," he said. "Oh. No, seriously. I've been here a few weeks and I can't stop wondering what it would be like to stay longer." She didn't look at him. "You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to impress you. You don't strike me as the kind of guy who does things without a reason." "That's fair," he admitted. "But maybe the reason is that I finally stopped running from silence." She turned to him then. "You think this is silence? It's quieter than what I'm used to." She looked out at the crowd. "This town isn't quiet, Sebastian. It just speaks in softer tones. You have to listen harder." A voice called her name from across the square. It was a lanky man with a red scarf and a clipboard. "I've got to help with the raffle," she said. "You good for a bit? I'll be right here." He watched her walk away, her boots crunching on the snow. Something stirred in his chest, something unfamiliar and heavy. This wasn't just about attraction. It wasn't even about escape anymore. It was about the way she saw the world and how being near her made him want to see it that way too. A man in a denim jacket stepped beside him. "You're the guy who bought the Loring place, right?" Sebastian nodded. "You planning to flip it?" "No, good. We don't need another weekend ghost house. Glad you're sticking around." The man walked off without another word. Sebastian stared into the fire, letting the comments settle. When Shiloh returned, she was holding a small envelope. "You won something." "I didn't enter anything." "Doesn't matter. They put everyone's name in." He opened it. Inside was a handwritten voucher for one private tour of the Ridge Trail guide, Shiloh Larson. He looked up puzzled. "I made it myself," she said. "That trail's closed for the season. But I've got a key to the gate." "And why would I need a private tour?" "Because you need to see what the stars look like from the top." They agreed to meet the next night, just after sunset. She picked him up in her truck, and they drove in comfortable silence through winding, darkening roads until they reached the trailhead. They hiked slowly. The cold bit at their cheeks, and their breath came in visible bursts. Sebastian wasn't used to hiking, but he didn't complain. Halfway up, she paused. "This was where I came the night before I left for college." He glanced around. The trees were tall and bare, the path narrow, the air still. "I stood right here," she continued, "and told myself I'd never come back. I was wrong." They reached the ridge just as the stars came out. The sky was endless, unbroken, dazzling in its clarity. A wide valley stretched below, the town a scattering of lights in the distance. He stepped beside her. "You were right about the stars. They're only like this after a snow. Cleaner air." He turned to her. "I want to build something here." She looked confused. "What kind of something?" "A place that doesn't need boardrooms or skyscrapers. Something that makes me feel like this." She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, quietly, "You really mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." She looked up, her eyes reflecting the sky. "Then you better be ready for a lot of people asking why for the rest of your life." "I don't care about the why anymore. I care about the who." She reached for his hand, her glove rough against his. "Then let's see where this goes." They stood there beneath the stars, the wind curling around them, nothing between them but breath and possibility. And for the first time in ages, he felt like the future wasn't something he had to buy, manage, or escape from. It was something he was finally allowed to feel. A week later, the lake had begun to thaw. Patches of ice fractured under the late February sun, veins of silver threading through the surface like old secrets coming loose. Sebastian stood on the dock behind the estate, watching the water shift and glimmer. A quiet breeze carried the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Shiloh's boots crunched behind him. "You've been out here for a while." He turned. She wore a quilted vest over a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Her hair was down for once, brushing her shoulders in loose waves. Her hands were dusty with flour. Somewhere inside, something was baking. "I needed to think," he said. "You're not leaving, are you?" He stepped closer. "I was going to. I had a flight booked." She said nothing. "But I canceled it. Last night." Her eyes searched his. "Why?" "Because I woke up yesterday and realized I didn't want to go back to the person I was before I landed here. I don't even know that man anymore." You've changed a lot in a short time. I've changed because of you. She looked down at the dock. You say that like it's a good thing. It is. Shiloh crossed her arms. I'm not the kind of woman who fits into someone's empire. I'm not asking you to fit into anything. I'm asking if I can build something with you. She hesitated. You've always had the option to leave. I never did. This is my life. My job, my family, the town gossip, the silent expectations. You get to fall in love with the idea of it, but I have to live with the reality. He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. Then let me choose that reality. Not as an escape. Not as a fantasy. But as a life. Her voice was quiet. I don't know how to trust that yet. Then I'll keep showing up until you do. She didn't move for a long moment. Then her fingers curled around his. I've never done this before. Neither have I. They walked back toward the house together. Inside, the smell of cinnamon filled the kitchen. She pulled the pie from the oven while he poured 2 glasses of cider from the pot on the stove. They ate at the counter, knees brushing. You know, she said between bites, you've got a perfectly good dining table. I like this better. Later that night, as the fire crackled low in the living room, Sebastian pulled a velvet box from his coat pocket. He didn't open it. He held it in his palm, watching the way the flames danced across the surface. I've been carrying this around for over a week, he said. Shiloh looked at him, eyes wide. What are you doing? I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, he said. I'm asking if we can build towards something real. Something long-term. I want to be here. With you. In every way. She reached out and touched the box, not opening it either. I need time. I'll wait, he said. But I had to ask. The next morning, he drove her to her mother's place on the edge of town. They brought groceries, fixed a broken window latch, and helped haul firewood inside. He didn't try to impress anyone. He just worked. That evening, Shiloh leaned against the hood of the truck as the sun dipped behind the hills. You didn't flinch once. At what? The chaos. The noise. The lack of control. He leaned beside her. I've spent years controlling every detail of my life. It never made me feel this settled. She turned to face him fully. You're really not going back? No. I want to build something here. Not just for me. For us. I don't need anyone to save me. I know. That's why this works. She was quiet for a long time. Then, you're not who I thought you'd be. Neither are you. When he drove her home, she didn't invite him in. But she kissed him beside the porch light, her hand cradling his jaw like she was memorizing the shape of him. The next few days passed like a rhythm they'd always known. Coffee on the dock. Walks through the woods. A trip to the local hardware store where he insisted on buying a new generator for the airport after the power flickered one night. She protested. He bought it anyway. He didn't talk about the city. She didn't ask. Then one afternoon he found her waiting on the dock, a letter in her hand. I got accepted, she said quietly. To what? A grant program. Aviation logistics. It's in Denver. It's only 6 months. He blinked. When did you apply? Before you landed. He swallowed. Do you want to go? I do. He stepped closer. Then go. Her brow furrowed. Just like that. I want to be with someone who chases the things that matter to her. I'll still be here when you come back. She stared at him. You mean that? Yes. That night she packed. He helped. She left the next morning and he didn't try to stop her. Instead, he stayed. He hired locals to restore the old barn behind the estate into a community aviation workshop. He started a scholarship fund in her father's name for students interested in flight mechanics. He attended town meetings, joined the festival committee, and learned how to split wood without nearly losing a finger. 6 months passed. One warm summer evening, he stood outside the workshop as the sun dipped low, casting amber light across the lake. The buzz of a small plane overhead made him look up, shielding his eyes. It circled once, then dipped low for landing. He was already walking toward the truck when the tires hit the runway. She climbed out before the engine even cooled. Her boots hit the gravel, and then she was running. He caught her in his arms, lifting her clear off the ground. She laughed into his neck. I missed you. He pulled back just enough to look at her. I never stopped waiting. She reached into her bag and pulled out the velvet box he'd once handed her, now worn at the edges. She opened it slowly. The ring sparkled in the sunlight. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. He slid it onto her finger right there on the runway. And when he kissed her this time, it wasn't about promises or possibilities. It was about everything they already were. Rain tapped softly against the windows of the workshop as Shiloh set down her duffel bag and looked around. The space had transformed. Where there had once been dust-thick beams and broken shelves, now gleamed polished workbenches, mounted tools, and a freshly painted sign above the lofted office that read, Larson O'Connell Aviation Initiative. She turned slowly, absorbing every corner of what he'd built. Not just a space, but a tribute. Not just to her father, but to her. Sebastian stood by the workbench, sleeves rolled, hands stained with engine grease. The same hands that once held contracts and cufflinks now repaired aircraft engines with startling ease. He met her eyes, and for a second, the sound of rain and the scent of oil and cedar vanished. "You did all this," she said. "For you," he replied. "For us." She walked toward him, her boots thudding gently against the concrete floor. "I thought about this place every day in Denver. But I didn't expect to come back and find my name painted on a wall. You gave me something I didn't know I could have a purpose that wasn't tied to power or profit." Her gaze flicked to a large map mounted on the wall, dotted with pins and string. "What's this?" "Flight paths. Community programs. Outreach hubs. I've been working with regional schools. Aviation clubs. Scholarships. We've already got 3 students lined up for summer training." She turned back to him. "You actually stayed grounded. I wasn't flying without you." She stepped into his arms. "You waited." "I wasn't waiting," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I was building." 2 weeks later, the town gathered for the opening of the workshop. People filed through the barn doors, marveling at the transformation. Local reporters snapped photos. A former student of Shiloh's father gave a speech that made her mother cry quietly in the front row. Sebastian stood beside her, his hand never leaving hers, not once during the entire ceremony. After the crowd thinned and the sun began to dip behind the hills, Shiloh led Sebastian out to the edge of the ridge trail. The same trail that had once marked her escape, the one that had opened a door she hadn't realized she'd wanted to walk through again. They stood in silence for a moment, the wind gentler than it had been last winter. "I was wrong," she said. "About what?" "This place doesn't trap you. It reveals you." He took her hand. "You revealed me." Her voice dropped. "I want to stay. You already are. And I want you beside me every morning. Not just here. Not just in this town. In life." Sebastian reached into his coat and pulled out a small gold key on a chain. "Then this belongs to you." She frowned, confused. "Is that for the house?" "No. It's for the hangar. I bought the airfield." She blinked. "What?" "I'm turning it into a regional training site. You'll run it. You'll decide the curriculum. You'll hire the staff. I'll fund it, but it'll be yours." Her breath caught. "Why would you do that?" "Because I love you, Shiloh. And loving you means giving you the sky," he said. "Not just a piece of it. All of it." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she reached up, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him with a certainty that left no room for hesitation. Later that night, they sat on the porch of the estate, wrapped in a blanket, sharing kisses and hot cider as fireflies danced across the lawn. The estate no longer felt like a place he had come to escape. Now it felt like home. A month passed, and the airfield reopened under its new name, Larson Ridge Aviation. Shiloh ran the day-to-day operations, mentoring students with the same hands-on grit that had once carried her through grief and responsibility. Sebastian split his time between the office he built inside the hangar and their home, no longer distracted by deadlines or boardroom politics. He had stepped back from his Manhattan empire, handing control to a trusted partner, choosing instead to build something that mattered. They married in early fall, beneath an arch of golden leaves, surrounded by the people who had once doubted if a man like Sebastian O'Connell could ever truly belong in a town like theirs. But as he read his vows, voice steady and eyes locked on hers. There wasn't a single trace of doubt left in the valley. Shiloh wore a simple ivory dress, her hair pinned with wildflowers from the ridge. He wore a gray suit and a look that said he'd never been more certain of anything in his life. There were no paparazzi, no headlines, only the sound of wind in the trees and the quiet tears of her mother in the front row. That night, after the last lantern was lit and the final toast made, they danced barefoot in the grass. No music, no stage, just the hush of the world and the steady beat of two hearts in sync. Years later, people in town still whispered about the billionaire who'd traded skyscrapers for mountains, about the woman who'd turned a faded airfield into a hub of opportunity, about the love story that had started with a wrong landing and ended with two souls choosing each other every single day. But for Sebastian and Shiloh, there was no ending. There was only this life, a house by the lake and a hangar full of dreams, a porch where laughter echoed and kisses were currency, a love built not on rescue, but on respect, and a sky wide enough for both of them to fly.